Hi guys, it's Tom Eaton here with SLAB Boxing, proudly sponsored by Empire Fight Store. And today we go down under as we speak to WBA Oceania Super-Welterweight champion Koen Mazoudier. How are we doing, mate?
Good, mate. Thanks for having me on.
So first I saw you was your fight against Wade Ryan on the Tim's shoe against Dennis Hogan undercard. What were a top class fight and a great advert for Australian boxing. Since then, boxing Australia seems to have really boomed. Do you get the feel around the country that the sport is back on the rise?
Yeah, we're in a really good place in Australia at the moment. We've got a couple of front runners like Tim Tszyu, obviously challenging for the Super-Welterweight titles. And if your mind's dropped, a Thai world champ, George Kambosos. Yeah, it's awesome, man. Like, I grew up with all these boys. I was in the amateur teams and in the state, amateur teams with all these guys, and I've seen them go through the, progress of being where they are now. So yeah, it's a really hot area, and I'm in the hottest division in Australia as well. So it's exciting times.
Everyone focuses on the stars like George Kambosos and Tim Tszyu, but the domestic scene is a really high level over there as well. Do the guys who have gone on from the domestic scene to challenge for world titles give hope to domestic fighters like yourself that the gap between domestic level in Australia and the world level is maybe not as big as some might perceive it to be?
Yeah, definitely, 100%. And so I've sort of grown up with these guys, and then even seeing guys like Taito Vaz, Tyson Pedro on the MMA scene. Again, I grew up with these guys from the same suburb, and definitely does make it a lot easier to touch. You see that gold a little bit closer to home, and you think, yeah, it's yeah, these guys overseas as well. When you start moving with them and seeing what they're doing, it's all the same stuff. We're all we all got two arms, two legs, and yeah, man, it's exciting time for sure.
Do you find that Australian boxers seem to try and help each other out a lot more? They want Australia to be big in the boxing scene and wanting and people from their own country to be up there challenging for world titles.
Yeah, well, I guess it's smaller here. It's not one of the major sports in Australia, unfortunately. Like, which doesn't make sense to me. Everyone loves to watch a fight, so I think it's just the money and the promotion and the grassroots that is the difference. Because we've got the high level athletes and caliber athletes. It's just, yeah, bringing up that sport as a whole. So I think that's sort of what does it for us. Especially wanting to get the high level sparring preparation, and you need to surround yourself with the best to be the best. So I think we're all looking at the world level these days, and really knowing that we can move outside of Australia and do big things.
Like you said, the super welterweight division is probably the hottest one in Australia at the moment. You've got Ben Mahoney, Wade Ryan, even up and coming Nikita Sue, probably looking at your belt. Is the plan to defend that belt for you?
Yeah, so I hold the WBA Oceania as well as the WBC Australasian title at the moment. So I want to fight as often as possible, defend those belts, climb the rankings. And we've had names that tossed us at us like Nikita Zoo, like Michael Zarafa even, Wade Ryan rematch, bunch of different things that have been like talked about. And man, I'm here to fight anyone anytime. So like, yeah, we'll see what happens. But how it is. It's a game. It's a business. So just waiting for the next opportunity. And yeah, I'm ready to defend those titles anytime.
Do you feel like you've got a bit of unfinished business with Wade Ryan?
Definitely. We actually bumped into each other at a fight night the other night. He's a good bloke. He just got married, and we had a good chat. And yeah, man, I need to get him back. He stopped me and put a big stop on my career. As far as I'm concerned, if I'd been a little bit more prepared and in the right mind frame for that opportunity, I could be currently fighting for a world title where Dennis Hogan is right now. So um, I will fight him and I will beat him at some point.
Since you lost to Wade Ryan, you've twice beaten Joel Camilleri despite being the underdog. How do you reflect back on those victories, and how tough was it to come back after the loss to Ryan?
After the loss to Ryan, it wasn't too hard. I sort of, the experience I've had through the amateurs, I had 80 amateur fights, lost, probably about 20 of those, and I had also lost a fight previously to Luke Woods. So I'm not losing isn't new to me, and I knew that it was just another hurdle I had to get over and go from. And the amount I learned from that Wade Ryan fight was invaluable. I grew tenfold over that fight, and I've grown tenfold each last two fights I've had. As you said with Joel Camilleri, these last three fights I've had with guys, 30 plus fights, around 30 fights, three times my experience and veterans of the sport. So I've been growing immensely each fight and leveling up and just getting more confidence in myself. So I'm loving it, man. I love competing at the highest level. It's why I fight. I want to compete at the highest level and test myself against the best and go as far as I possibly can.
In the UK, we've also got a pretty strong super welterweight division. We've got Troy Williamson, Ted Cheeseman, Josh Kelly, as well as the likes of Liam Smith and Sam Egerton, maybe above the domestic level. How do you think the standard of the Australian domestic scene compares to that of the UK?
The UK is strong as there as well. It's obviously a hot division worldwide. You know, it's quite a standard sort of weight. And the UK, it's one of the best boxing countries in the world. I spent a couple of weeks in the UK and England, traveling around, sparring around 60 rounds with you know the top guys there, like Pat McCormick, and a couple other top boys there at the time. And man, yeah, it's one of the best scenes. So of course you're gonna have some of the best fighters there, have some of the best amateur and development scenes and all those sort of things. So I think you guys definitely got some big names there. That I think across the board, yeah, as you said, we've got maybe 3-4 guys. There's 3-4 guys at the top of the Australian scene that I see in real competition for the top of the belt. Tim Tszyu being the king at the moment in Australia, and yeah, over in the UK, all those guys are tough, strong fighters. But I watch those fights. I see Troy Williamson versus Ted Cheeseman and all these fights. And yeah, man, I'm looking at all these guys as potential opponents. So I'd love to make a break into the UK scene after I conquer a couple more big wins here in Australia and sort of prove my place. I really see myself potentially fitting into the UK scene and seeing what happens there. We have some old connections with Nigel and Conor Benn. They started their fight journey here too. So see what happens.
You see a few Australians making that jump. So you got Sky Nicholson probably more recently. Does that give you some sort of confidence that you can go over to the UK and make a name for yourself over here as well?
Definitely, yeah. I think I've got the package to entertain, to bring quality. I love the sport of boxing. I think I can bring quality to the sport, not only through my ability as well as my characteristics, and just and yeah, definitely come to take on some of the best there. Seeing people like Ebony and Sky and a couple of the other guys doing well over there, yeah, pays the way. Again, I've known all these guys for years, and it definitely makes it a lot closer home. Matchroom's got their first card over here as well. Eddie Hearn, in my opinion, probably the best promoter around at the moment. So we'll see what happens. We'll see where we go. I'm just going to keep getting better and keep winning, and then grab onto any opportunity that arises.
You mentioned the upcoming Matchroom card, but there's also another one with another super welterweight as Sam Egerton fights Dennis Hogan at the Super Saturday Boxing Festival. What do you make of not only that fight but the event as a whole?
Yeah, it's a great event, and again, all those high level promoters there are doing great things. Dennis Hogan, someone I really have watched and rated through his journey when he should have beaten Munguia, and was twice denied world titles when he has that real high caliber of boxing skill, but I think just lacks the power maybe and something to stop people in their tracks. Where Egerton he's a real fighter as well as a boxer, so it's an interesting fight. I think Hogan's on the back end of his career, and as far as I'm concerned, maybe could have a last hurrah. He's at that point where he could have a real last dig and win a world title and move on, or he's going to fall apart and Egerton's behind a good run. So interesting fight, man. Interesting time. There's lots of hot names in the Super-Welterweight division, that's for sure.
There's a couple more big fights coming up for Australia, of course. Kambosos versus Haney in a rematch. Charlo versus Tim Tszyu. Both Australians are underdogs in that fight. How do you see them fights panning out? And is there a bit of a confidence in Australia that the guys are being potentially underrated by the rest of the world?
Yeah, we're always going to get underrated. That's how it is, down under. And for some reason, they put us down there in their opinions of what we're doing. And it is what it is. We don't have as many champions. It's not as big a sport here. I can understand where that comes from, but so I think athlete to athlete, we're some of the best athletes in the world, and any of these guys that really put their minds into this sport, 100 do everything 100% right, like the best in the world are, can be the best in the world no matter who they're up against. George, I've seen George do that. I'm very close. I'm close with George, and I've watched him at arm's length closely develop into an absolute machine just from his discipline and his focus and his self-belief and his drive. And Tim, again, same thing. He's got the legacy and the name and the team. He's got everything in the right place, and he's put in a lot of discipline, time, and effort to get to where he is. So they're no different to these guys that they're up against. But the one thing that I will say is that both Charlo and Haney are freaks. They're two, not only obviously the best, I think the most dangerous boxers in their divisions, but potentially like pound for pound at the moment, two of the best as well, and really just real solid hard champions. So they're both going to be cracker fights. Honestly, I see Tim struggling to get over Charlo unless he makes a big improvement over his last fight with Gausha, but that was again first fight in America, sickness. Who knows how good he's going to look? I really think Tim can beat Charlo if he's 100%. If he's not, I think Charlo will beat him. And same goes for George. If George makes adjustments and then it comes a different game plan, he's a warrior and he's got his soul's purpose is what he's doing right now. So I do think he can beat Haney, but again, Haney's a freak of nature. So yeah, it's we'll see what happens. Exciting fights.
We saw Kambosos sort of stick it on Teofimo Lopez when he won the belts, and he did it to Lee Selby as well over in the UK. Do you think that's what he needs to do more of against Haney? Because he was a bit more restrictive, maybe a bit more frightened of what's coming back in the first fight.
Yeah, that seems to be the plan. Like if you look at the fight, you think of Haney's jab and how great his boxing IQ and distance is. It doesn't make sense to try to box him. You're never going to be able to outbox him at this stage. And if George has one thing, it is ferocity. George ferocious, Kambosos, and a will to win and speed and desire. So yeah, I think that makes sense. He'll need to come at him and make it a rough fight.
Finally, at just 26 years old, you've got a big future ahead, I'm sure. But what are the goals for Koen Mazoudier in the next 12 to 18 months, but also in the next maybe 5 years?
Long term, it's world title, world champion. That's been the goal since I've been a kid, and it's one of those things that makes me still uncomfortable to even say. But I know I'm on that way. I'm on that journey, and I'm going to continue to do it, everything I possibly can to get there. So I will get there. In the next 12 to 18 months, I'd like to fight. I'd like to be fighting at least a minimum 4 times a year at the moment. So if I can get in another 4, 5, 6 fights in the next 12 to 18 months, look, again, it's a typical thing, your manager plan, etc. I've talked to my manager, and look, we hope to have 2 big Australian level fights, prove my place here, then start looking at some big international fights, and just to keep climbing the rankings and taking on the biggest challenge and opportunities that come.
Koen, you've been a pleasure, mate. Thanks for your time and good luck in achieving those goals.
Thanks, Tom. Appreciate it, mate. Have a good one.